Darkness. Total, absolute, pressing darkness. And then a single pulse of cold blue light splits the black water like a crack through glass. And in that fraction of a second, illuminated by nothing but the ocean's own bioluminescent fire, a mouth. Rows upon rows of serrated bone-white teeth. A jaw wide enough to swallow the future. The great white hangs suspended in the mid-water column. Perfectly still. Perfectly patient. Its black eye, ancient, unreadable, cold as the deep itself, scanning the darkness for the signal it has been waiting for. It never sees what is coming. From somewhere far below, from a depth where pressure alone is enough to crush bone, a shape accelerates upward. Black. Massive. Moving with the kind of velocity that belongs to something that has never, in its entire evolutionary history, had reason to fear anything in this ocean. The impact is not loud. It is felt. A low, resonant, metallic concussion rolls through the water column. The great white, 600 kilograms of apex predator, is driven sideways with a force that compresses the surrounding water into a visible, expanding shockwave. Its body rolls. Its belly faces the light. And then, something extraordinary happens. The shark goes still. Not dead. Not wounded. Something far stranger. Every muscle in that legendary body, those powerful, perfectly engineered muscles that can launch 2 tons of predator completely clear of the ocean surface, every single one of them simply releases. Surrenders. As though the body itself has decided that this fight is already over. Tonic immobility. An involuntary neurological paralysis triggered by the disorientation of being held upside down. A biological vulnerability buried so deep within the shark's architecture that it has never needed to evolve a defense against it. Because for 400 million years, nothing in this ocean has ever been capable of exploiting it. Until now. A second shadow enters the frame from the right. Then a third from above. Moving in perfect geometric coordination, closing angles that were calculated. Yes, calculated. Before the first blow was ever struck. This was not ambush. This was not instinct. This was a plan. In the open ocean, dominance is not earned through brute force alone. It is a calculated negotiation of timing, spatial awareness, and environmental mastery. Here, on a 3-dimensional chessboard, where every shadow, every pressure wave, every shift in temperature carries intelligence, the line between supreme hunter and helpless prey can dissolve in a single silent second. Welcome to the Pacific Ocean. The largest body of water on the surface of this planet. stretching across more than 165 million square kilometers, covering nearly a third of the Earth's entire surface. If you removed every continent from the face of this world and placed them inside the Pacific, there would still be room left over. Room enough for silence. Room enough for secrets that humanity has barely begun to decipher. From the air, it appears calm. A vast, shimmering field of blue and silver light drifting toward every horizon simultaneously. There is a stillness to it at this scale that feels almost sacred, almost peaceful. It is neither. Beneath that deceptively serene surface lies a system of staggering thermal complexity, invisible highways of current and temperature that circle the globe, carrying heat from the equator toward the poles, drawing cold, nutrient-dense water upward from the abyss, and regulating the atmospheric conditions of an entire planet. These are not passive flows of water. They are rivers within an ocean, some of them wider than entire continents, moving with a quiet, relentless authority that shapes weather, dictates migration, and determines which species live and which species vanish. The Pacific breathes, and when it exhales, the world changes. Down beneath the surface, past the warm, sunlit euphotic zone where light still penetrates and photosynthesis still operates, the water darkens rapidly. The temperature drops. The pressure builds. And at a certain depth, somewhere between 200 and 1,000 meters below the surface, the ocean reorganizes itself entirely. A sharp, invisible boundary, a thermocline, separates the warm, oxygenated upper world from the cold, crushing deep. Two entirely different oceans stacked on top of each other, each with its own rules, its own inhabitants, its own brutal logic of survival. And through both of these worlds, through the brilliant fish-filled shallows and the crushing, lightless deep, life moves, migrates, hunts, hides, communicates through pressure and electricity and light, solves problems that have no precedent, navigates environments that would kill a human being in minutes. A sea turtle, hatched on a warm Pacific beach, carries within its nervous system a geomagnetic map of the entire ocean floor. It reads the Earth's magnetic field the way you might read a road sign, not consciously, not deliberately, but with a deep, inherited certainty that has been refined across tens of millions of years of oceanic wandering. It crosses entire ocean basins alone. Returns decades later to the exact beach where it was born, to within meters of its original nest site. Without instruments. Without error. A mako shark, the fastest shark in this ocean, detects the electrochemical signature of a single wounded fish from hundreds of meters away. Not through smell alone, though its olfactory system is extraordinary, but through a network of sensory organs called the ampullae of Lorenzini, microscopic gel-filled pores distributed across its snout that detect faint electrical fields generated by every living muscle, every beating heart, every nerve impulse firing within range. The shark does not search for its prey. It reads the ocean the way a physician reads an electrocardiogram, and simply follows the signal. And in the open midwater, in that vast, featureless blue desert between the surface and the floor, a school of perhaps 1 million sardines moves as a single organism. No leader. No command structure. Each individual fish responding to the movement of its nearest neighbors through a set of hydrodynamic and visual cues so finely tuned that the entire school can reverse direction, every single fish, in 27 milliseconds. Faster than the human eye can process a single frame of vision. Faster than any predator can track. Almost any predator. This is the Pacific. Not a backdrop. Not a setting. A living system, ancient, restless, and staggeringly complex, where every organism, from the largest whale to the smallest drifting microbe, is a moving piece on a chessboard that spans 1/3 of this planet. And we are only just beginning to understand the rules of the game. Consider the architecture of a predator. Not the teeth. Not the speed. Not the raw, visceral power that makes the human nervous system instinctively recoil. Consider instead the intelligence behind it. The patience. The geometry. The extraordinary capacity to read an environment so precisely, so completely, that the outcome of a hunt is effectively decided long before the first movement is made. In the Pacific Ocean, the apex predators are not simply powerful. They are strategic. And the distinction between those two things, between raw power and refined strategy, is the difference between survival and extinction. The great white shark has existed in essentially its current form for approximately 16 million years. To put that in perspective, 16 million years ago, our own ancestors were small, tree-dwelling primates who had not yet developed the cognitive capacity for complex language. The great white was already here, already hunting, already perfecting a system of predation so efficient that evolution has seen almost no reason to revise it since. It patrols the midwater corridors of the Pacific, those invisible channels of temperature and current that concentrate prey into predictable, exploitable pathways. It does not wander. It does not search randomly through an empty ocean and hope for luck. It reads the thermal complexity of the water column, the way an experienced navigator reads wind and tide, with a quiet, unhurried certainty born from millions of years of accumulated biological knowledge. When a great white selects a target, what follows is not chaos. It is precision. The shark positions itself below and behind its prey, exploiting the counter-illumination effect that makes its pale underbelly nearly invisible against the sunlit surface when viewed from below. It closes the distance slowly, patiently, using the slope of the seafloor or the shadow of a thermocline as concealment. And then, at the precise moment when distance, angle, and momentum align, it accelerates. Not fast. Explosively fast. From a standing position to 40 kilometers per hour in less than 2 seconds. The strike travels upward, always upward, driving its body entirely clear of the water's surface in an attack sequence called a breach. The prey, a Cape fur seal perhaps, or a young sea lion, has approximately 300 milliseconds between the moment the shark enters its peripheral vision and the moment the encounter ends. 300 milliseconds. The blink of a human eye takes 350. And yet, for all the cold, ancient perfection of the great white, there is a predator in this ocean that hunts it. That specifically, deliberately, and repeatedly targets the apex predator of the shark world. Not out of desperation. Not because prey is scarce, but because it can. Because it has the intelligence to identify the great white's single physiological vulnerability, that involuntary paralysis of tonic immobility, and the cooperative capacity to exploit it systematically. The orca, Orcinus orca, the killer whale. A name that does not begin to capture what this animal actually is. What it actually is a mind. A sophisticated, socially structured, culturally transmitting mind, encased in a body that can reach 9 meters in length and weigh up to 6 tons, and that can sustain speeds of 56 kilometers per hour through open water. A mind that learns, that teaches, that remembers, that grieves. Orca society is matrilineal. It is organized around the oldest female in the pod, the matriarch, whose decades of accumulated ecological knowledge form the cognitive backbone of the entire group's survival strategy. She knows where the salmon run in late summer. She knows which bay offers shelter during the season of rogue storms. She knows, from experience and from the transmitted experience of her own mother before her, the precise behavioral patterns of the great white shark in these waters. She knows its vulnerability, and she has taught her children how to exploit it. This is not instinct. This is culture. Behavioral knowledge transmitted deliberately across generations, the same fundamental mechanism that allowed early humans to accumulate and pass on survival strategies across thousands of years. In the orca, that same mechanism has been operating in the ocean for 12 million years. Watch a pod of orcas hunting a great white, and what you witness is less like an animal attack and more like a military operation. The pod spreads across a wide area of ocean, communicating through a private dialect of clicks, whistles, and pulsed calls, a vocal signature so specific to their group that researchers can identify individual pods by sound alone, the way you might identify a person by voice. They establish positions. They drive the shark upward toward the surface, cutting off its escape routes below. Two individuals take flanking positions while a third, often the most experienced female, maneuvers beneath the shark and drives it upward with a single, precisely calculated strike to the flank. The shark inverts. Tonic immobility takes hold within seconds. And the ocean's most ancient apex predator, the creature that has patrolled these waters since before our species existed, becomes, in that moment, completely helpless. And here is where the story becomes genuinely extraordinary. Because in the waters off the Farallon Islands, off the coast of South Africa, in the channels between New Zealand's subantarctic islands, researchers have documented something that should make every person watching this stop and think carefully about what intelligence actually means. When orcas begin hunting great whites in a particular area, when the sharks detect the presence of an orca pod, they leave. Not just the immediate vicinity. They abandon the entire region. Tagged great whites that have patrolled specific hunting grounds for years have been recorded departing within hours of orca presence and not returning for months. Sometimes not returning at all. The apex predator of the shark world, an animal with no natural predators across 400 million years of evolutionary history, has developed a fear response. A specific, targeted, cognitively driven fear response to a single species. And the ecological consequences of that fear ripple outward through the entire food web in ways that scientists are only beginning to map. When great whites abandon a region, their prey, primarily Cape fur seals and various fish species, temporarily overpopulates those waters. The seals consume greater quantities of fish. The fish populations shift. The plankton distributions change. And the entire ecological architecture of that coastal system, the relationships between dozens of species across multiple trophic levels, reorganizes itself around the absence of a single predator. This is what ecologists call a trophic cascade. And it reveals something profound about the Pacific's living architecture, that no organism in this ocean exists in isolation. Every predator, every prey species, every drifting microbe is connected to every other through a web of pressure, response, and consequence so intricate that pulling on any single thread changes the tension of the entire system. Now consider the tiger shark, where the great white is a specialist, refined, precise, committed to a particular hunting strategy honed across millions of years. The tiger shark is something altogether different. It is an opportunist, a generalist, an animal whose survival strategy is built not on perfection, but on flexibility. Tiger sharks patrol the shallow reef systems and open coastal waters of the Pacific with a patient, almost casual authority. They have been found with the contents of an extraordinary range of prey in their stomachs: fish, sea turtles, dolphins, seabirds, rays, smaller sharks, and in one documented case, an entire horse. They are not selective. They are responsive to opportunity, to environmental cues, to the ephemeral concentrations of resource that appear and disappear across the reef system as tides, currents, and seasons shift. This flexibility is itself a form of intelligence. In an ocean where conditions can change catastrophically and unpredictably, where an El Niño event can collapse an entire prey population in a matter of weeks, the ability to pivot, to exploit whatever the ocean offers in any given moment, is not a lesser strategy than specialization. It is a different kind of mastery. And in the long run, across the deep time of evolutionary history, it is the generalists, not the specialists, who would reliably survive catastrophic environmental change. And then, moving through these same waters, dwarfing even the tiger shark in physical scale, a creature that has redefined the concept of power entirely. The oceanic manta ray. A wingspan of up to 7 meters. A body mass of nearly 3 tons. And not a single tooth adapted for predation. Not one. Because the manta ray does not need them. It moves through the water with a slow, effortless grace that seems almost architectural, its vast triangular pectoral fins undulating in long, smooth waves, generating lift the way an aircraft wing generates lift, allowing it to soar through the midwater column with minimal energetic expenditure. It feeds on zooplankton, microscopic organisms that drift in vast, diffuse clouds through the upper water column, filtering enormous volumes of water through specialized gill plates that separate prey from seawater with extraordinary efficiency. But the manta ray's influence on the Pacific ecosystem extends far beyond its own feeding. As it moves through plankton blooms, diving, ascending, crossing thermoclines in its daily vertical migrations, it redistributes nutrients through the water column on a scale that individual predators cannot approach. Its movements concentrate plankton in specific areas, drawing the small fish that feed on plankton, which draw the larger fish that feed on those, which draw the apex predators that sit at the summit of the food web. The manta ray does not hunt, and yet its presence shapes the hunting grounds of every predator in these waters. It exerts a quiet, systemic influence on the Pacific's living architecture that is every bit as powerful as the strike of a great white or the coordinated assault of an orcapod. In this ocean, dominance does not always announce itself with teeth and speed. Sometimes it arrives slowly, silently, on 7-meter wings and rearranges the entire chessboard without a single act of violence. So here is a question worth sitting with. A question that has no easy answer, and that is precisely why it matters. When you watch an orcapod systematically locate, isolate, and neutralize the ocean's most ancient apex predator, when you see 400 million years of evolutionary perfection rendered helpless by coordinated intelligence and cultural knowledge, what are you actually witnessing? Is it a tragedy? The humiliation of something ancient and magnificent by something newer and more cognitively flexible? Or is it the ocean's own answer to its deepest question that in the end, it is not the strongest or the oldest or the most perfectly engineered predator that endures? It is the one that thinks. Does the orca's collaborative, culturally transmitted intelligence make it the true master of this ocean? Or does the great white's 400 million year legacy of solitary, ancient perfection represents something that no amount of cooperative strategy can truly surpass. There is no correct answer, but the depth of your response will reveal something about the way you understand intelligence itself. The ocean does not end at the surface. That shimmering boundary between water and air, the place where light refracts and reflects, where waves break and reform, where human beings have always drawn the conceptual line between the known world and the alien deep, that boundary is not an ending. It is a beginning. The first layer of an architecture so vast, so vertically complex, that most of what exists in the Pacific has never been touched by sunlight. Stand at the edge of the ocean and look out toward the horizon, and what you see is perhaps 5% of what is actually there. The rest, the overwhelming majority of the Pacific's living volume, exists below, in layers, in zones, in entire ecological worlds stacked one on top of the other like floors in a building that descends not hundreds of meters, but 11,000. And through every single one of those layers, from the warm, sunlit shallows down to the crushing, lightless abyss, life moves. Migrates. Feeds. Breeds. Navigates invisible highways of temperature, salinity, and current that connect ecosystems separated by thousands of vertical meters and tens of thousands of horizontal kilometers. These are the hidden highways of the Pacific. And to understand them is to understand that this ocean is not a single environment. It is dozens of environments, each with its own physics, its own chemistry, its own population of organisms, so specifically adapted to their particular depth and pressure and temperature that they cannot survive anywhere else. We begin in the euphotic zone, the sunlit upper layer, from the surface down to approximately 200 meters, where enough light penetrates to allow photosynthesis. This is the Pacific that human beings know best. The world of coral reefs and kelp forests, of dolphins and sea turtles, of every postcard image and documentary sequence that has ever tried to capture what the ocean looks like. But even here, in the brightest, warmest, most accessible part of the Pacific, the environment is not uniform. There are gradients. Invisible boundaries where temperature shifts by 10 degrees across a single meter of depth. Thermoclines, sharp transitional layers that separate warm surface water from the cold, nutrient-rich water below, that act as ecological barriers every bit as significant as a mountain range on land. Coral reefs cling to the shallow edges of volcanic islands and continental shelves, constructing vast limestone cities from the calcium carbonate skeletons of billions of individual polyps. Each reef is a collaboration, a biological architecture built across thousands of years by organisms smaller than a human fingernail, creating structures visible from orbit. And within those structures, in the cracks and caves and overhangs, thousands of species take shelter, feed, reproduce, and compete for space with a ferocity that rivals any apex predator. A moray eel lies coiled in the shadow of a coral head, its body perfectly camouflaged against the reef's mottled surface, waiting with a patience that borders on geological for the precise moment when a passing fish strays within range. A single strike, faster than human perception can follow, and the encounter is over before the prey's nervous system registers pain. But the eel is not alone in its ambush. Watching from above, hovering in the water column with an almost supernatural stillness, a roving corral grouper tracks the same school of fish. And then something extraordinary happens. The grouper swims to the opening of the eel's den. It positions itself directly in front of the entrance and performs a rapid, vertical head shake, a deliberate, unmistakable signal. The eel emerges. And together, fish and eel, two entirely different species with entirely different hunting strategies, they coordinate. The grouper drives the school toward the reef. The eel enters the crevices where the grouper cannot follow. The prey, trapped between two predators operating in perfect, cross-species cooperation, has nowhere left to go. This is not coincidence. This is not instinct misfiring. This is communication. Deliberate, intentional, repeated across hundreds of documented encounters in reefs throughout the Indo-Pacific. Two species that do not share a common language, and yet have developed a mutual understanding sophisticated enough to execute collaborative hunting strategies in real time. Move west from the reef, away from the shallow, sunlit edges, and the seafloor drops away into open blue water. The color changes. The light diffuses. And suddenly, there are no landmarks. No reef structure to provide orientation. Just an infinite, featureless column of blue that extends in every direction simultaneously. This is the pelagic zone, the open ocean. And it is here, in this vast directionless desert of water, that the true scale of Pacific navigation reveals itself. A yellowfin tuna crosses 2,000 kilometers of open ocean to reach a specific seamount, an underwater mountain rising from the abyssal plain where aggregations of prey gather in predictable seasonal pulses. It does not wander. It does not search. It travels in a straight line, correcting for current drift, adjusting its depth to exploit favorable thermoclines, and arrives at its destination with a navigational precision that researchers still do not fully understand. How? What sensory system allows an animal to construct a cognitive map of an environment with no visible landmarks, no fixed reference points, nothing but gradients of temperature and salinity, and the faint magnetic whispers of the Earth's own geophysical field? We do not know. Not completely. But we know it works. And we know that the ocean is full of these invisible highways, currents and thermoclines and chemical gradients that organisms use the way we use roads. Seamounts act as rest stops along these highways. Underwater mountains that rise thousands of meters from the abyssal plain forcing deep, cold, nutrient-rich water upward in a process called upwelling. That upwelling fertilizes the surface layers with nitrogen, phosphorus, and iron, the chemical foundation of photosynthesis, triggering blooms of phytoplankton that support entire food webs in the middle of otherwise barren ocean. A single seamount can host more biodiversity than the surrounding pelagic zone by orders of magnitude. Hammerhead sharks gather here in schools of hundreds, not to hunt, but to be cleaned by smaller fish that remove parasites from their skin and gills. Manta rays spiral upward through plankton clouds, feeding with their mouths wide, filtering thousands of liters per hour. And far below, down where the seamount slopes descend into permanent darkness, deep-sea corals anchor themselves to volcanic rock and wait for nutrient-rich currents to deliver food from the sunlit world above. Now we descend past 200 meters, past the lowest reach of sunlight, into a zone where photosynthesis is no longer possible, and every organism must either hunt, scavenge, or rely on organic matter drifting down from above. This is the mesopelagic, the twilight zone. A place of faint fading blue light where the only illumination comes from bioluminescence, the cold, chemical glow produced by living organisms themselves. And here, in this dim, cold, pressurized world, the largest migration on Earth takes place every single night. It is called the diel vertical migration, and it involves more biomass than all the wild mammals on land combined. Every evening, as the sun sets and the surface waters darken, billions of organisms, krill, lanternfish, squid, jellyfish, and countless species of zooplankton begin to rise. They ascend from depths of 500, 600, 700 meters, traveling upward through the water column to feed in the plankton-rich surface layers under cover of darkness. And every morning, before the sun rises and exposes them to visual predators, they descend again, returning to the safety of the deep twilight where their bioluminescent camouflage renders them nearly invisible. This migration moves an estimated 10 billion tons of biomass vertically through the ocean every 24 hours. It is the largest coordinated movement of life on the planet. And it connects the surface ocean, where sunlight drives photosynthesis and primary production, to the deep ocean, where no sunlight has penetrated in 3 billion years. The creatures that rise carry energy downward when they die. The creatures that stay below rely on that falling energy, that constant, silent rain of organic matter descending from the sunlit world, to survive. Remove this migration, and the deep ocean collapses. The entire abyssal food web, everything that lives below 1,000 meters, depends on it. But even this extraordinary connection between surface and abyss is only part of the story. Because there are places in the Pacific where the rules change entirely, where life does not depend on sunlight, not even indirectly, where entire ecosystems operate on chemistry alone, sustained by energy that comes not from the sun, but from the Earth's own molten interior. Hydrothermal vents, Imagine standing on the abyssal plain, 4,000 meters below the surface. The pressure here is 400 times atmospheric pressure at sea level, enough to crush a human body instantly. The temperature of the surrounding seawater is 2 degrees Celsius, just above freezing. There is no light, no photosynthesis, no plant life of any kind. And yet, rising from cracks in the seafloor, plumes of superheated water erupt at temperatures exceeding 400 degrees Celsius. The water does not boil, the pressure is too great, but it carries with it a payload of dissolved minerals: sulfur, methane, hydrogen sulfide, iron. Chemicals that would be toxic to most surface life. And around these vents, in a narrow zone where the superheated plume mixes with the freezing seawater, an entire ecosystem has assembled itself. Chemosynthetic bacteria form thick, white mats across the rocks, harvesting energy not from sunlight, but from the oxidation of hydrogen sulfide. These bacteria are primary producers, the foundation of the food web, but they do not photosynthesize. They chemosynthesize. They are eating the earth. Giant tube worms, Riftia pachyptilla, grow in dense colonies around the vent openings, extending blood-red plumes into the water to absorb hydrogen sulfide and oxygen. They have no mouth, no digestive system. They do not eat. Instead, they house chemosynthetic bacteria inside specialized organs in their bodies, and the bacteria convert chemical energy into organic compounds that feed the worm. This is symbiosis at its most fundamental. Two entirely different organisms, worm and bacteria, so interdependent that neither can survive without the other. Pale, eyeless crabs scuttle across the rocks, scavenging organic matter. Vent shrimp cluster in the hottest zones, their bodies hosting their own populations of chemosynthetic bacteria. And moving through it all, slow, patient, methodical, deep-sea fish with soft, gelatinous bodies and oversized eyes adapted to detect the faintest bioluminescent signals in the absolute dark. These ecosystems were unknown to science until 1977, less than 50 years ago. Before their discovery, it was believed that all life on Earth, every ecosystem, every food web, every organism, ultimately depended on the sun. We were wrong. And if we were wrong about something that fundamental, if there are entire ecosystems on our own planet operating on principles we did not know were possible until half a century ago, then what else are we wrong about? What other systems, what other connections, what other invisible highways are we still not seeing? Here is the question that should make you pause. You are standing on the abyssal plain, 4,000 meters of water above you, crushing pressure on every side, absolute darkness, temperatures near freezing, no sunlight, no landmarks, nothing but the faint chemical signature of a hydrothermal vent somewhere in the distance, and the quiet, patient awareness that a single mistake, a single miscalculation of energy, direction, or timing means you do not survive. Could you do it? Could you navigate that environment with nothing but electroreception, chemosensory cues, and the pressure-sensitive lateral line system that deep-sea fish use to detect movement in total darkness? Could you find food, avoid predators, locate a mate, and pass your genetics forward into the next generation in a world where every parameter of survival has been stripped down to the barest, most unforgiving essentials? Most people will say no. Most people cannot even imagine what it would take. But if you believe you possess the spatial intelligence, the sensory adaptability, and the sheer cognitive resilience to survive in the deep, if you think you understand what it actually means to exist in an environment this extreme, then prove it. How would you navigate the abyss? What strategy would you use? Because the depth of your answer will reveal whether you truly understand what intelligence means in an ocean this vast and this unforgiving. There is a kind of power that does not announce itself with teeth or speed or coordinated intelligence. It does not strike from below. It does not ambush. It does not hunt. It simply drifts. And in drifting, in surrendering completely to the motion of currents and tides and the slow, planetary circulation of water masses that have been moving through this ocean for thousands of years, it sustains everything. This is the power of plankton. And it is the most underestimated force in the Pacific Ocean. The word plankton comes from the Greek planktos, meaning wanderer or drifter. It does not refer to a single species or even a single type of organism. It refers to an entire category of life defined not by what it is, but by what it cannot do. Plankton cannot swim against a current. It has no powerful musculature, no hydrodynamic body plan, no evolutionary investment in speed or strength. It moves where the ocean moves it. And yet, despite this apparent helplessness, this total dependence on forces beyond its control, plankton is the foundation of nearly every food web in the Pacific. Without it, the ocean collapses. Completely. Utterly. Within a single generation. Phytoplankton, microscopic photosynthetic organisms drifting in the sunlit surface waters, are responsible for producing approximately 50% of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. Not forests. Not grasslands. These tiny, single-celled diatoms, cyanobacteria, and dinoflagellates, organisms so small that a single drop of seawater can contain millions of them, generate half the oxygen that every terrestrial animal, including every human being, breathes. They do this through photosynthesis, the same basic chemical process that plants use on land, absorbing carbon dioxide, capturing energy from sunlight, and releasing oxygen as a byproduct. But the scale at which this happens in the ocean is so vast, so incomprehensibly large, that it shapes the atmospheric chemistry of the entire planet. A single phytoplankton bloom, triggered by the upwelling of cold, nutrient-rich water from the deep, can cover an area larger than the United Kingdom. Satellite imagery captures these blooms as swirling clouds of turquoise and green spreading across hundreds of thousands of square kilometers of open ocean. They appear, flourish, and collapse within weeks, but in that brief window of productivity, they transfer billions of tons of carbon from the atmosphere into the ocean and lock it away in organic matter that will eventually sink into the abyss. This is the biological carbon pump, and it is one of the primary mechanisms by which the ocean regulates the planet's climate. But phytoplankton does not drift alone. Zooplankton, the animal counterpart to phytoplankton, includes an extraordinary diversity of organisms. Tiny crustaceans called copepods, no larger than a grain of rice, but present in such staggering numbers that they may represent the most abundant animal group on Earth. Larval forms of fish, crabs, mollusks, and echinoderms drifting through the water column in their earliest, most vulnerable life stages. Jellyfish, salps, arrow worms, comb jellies, all of them drifting. All of them feeding on phytoplankton, or on each other, or on the constant rain of organic particles falling from the surface layers toward the deep. And all of them serving as the primary food source for the next level of the food web, the small fish, the squid, the filter feeders that form the bridge between microscopic life and the apex predators that dominate the ocean's upper trophic levels. Remove the plankton, and that bridge collapses. The sardines disappear. The anchovies vanish. The krill populations crash. And suddenly, the seabirds have nothing to eat. The baleen whales, the largest animals ever to exist on this planet, starve. The entire structural logic of the Pacific food web unravels from the bottom up. And yet, despite their importance, despite their ubiquity, despite the fact that they literally keep this ocean alive, plankton are largely invisible to the human eye. You can swim through a plankton bloom and never see a single organism. The water might appear slightly cloudy, faintly discolored, but the individual cells are far too small to register visually. It is only when you magnify them, when you place a single drop of seawater under a microscope and adjust the focus, that the true complexity reveals itself. Diatoms encased in intricate geometric shells of silica, glass-like structures so mathematically precise that they resemble microscopic works of art. Dinoflagellates with whip-like flagella spinning through the water like living gyroscopes. Copepods with segmented bodies and delicate feathery appendages that create feeding currents to draw phytoplankton toward their mouths. Each one a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering. Each one solving the problem of survival in an environment where being small means being at the mercy of physics, where surface tension, viscosity, and Brownian motion dominate your existence far more than gravity or inertia ever could. But there are drifters in this ocean that are anything but small. The lion's mane jellyfish, Cyanea capillata, can grow a bell diameter of over 2 meters, with tentacles extending more than 30 meters through the water column. It does not hunt in any conventional sense. It simply drifts, trailing those long, stinging tentacles through schools of fish and clouds of zooplankton, capturing anything that makes contact. The tentacles are lined with specialized cells called cnidocytes, each one containing a coiled, harpoon-like structure called a nematocyst. When triggered by physical contact or chemical signals, the nematocyst fires in less than 1 millisecond, one of the fastest cellular processes in the animal kingdom, injecting venom into the prey and adhering to its tissue. The jellyfish does not chase. It does not pursue. It does not make decisions in any cognitive sense. It is a passive trap, drifting through the water on currents it cannot control, relying entirely on probability and the sheer volume of water it filters to bring food into contact with its weapons. And yet, this strategy works. It has worked for over 500 million years. Jellyfish existed before fish, before sharks, before vertebrates of any kind. They have survived every major extinction event in Earth's history, including the one that killed the dinosaurs, and they show no signs of declining. In fact, in many parts of the Pacific, jellyfish populations are increasing dramatically. Blooms that once appeared sporadically now occur with greater frequency and intensity, clogging fishing nets, shutting down power plants that rely on seawater cooling systems, and fundamentally altering the structure of coastal ecosystems. Why? Because jellyfish thrive in conditions that most other organisms cannot tolerate. Warmer water temperatures, lower oxygen levels, higher acidity, overfishing that removes their competitors and predators. Jellyfish are not just surviving the changes happening in the Pacific. They are benefiting from them. And then, drifting alongside the jellyfish, moving through the same currents, occupying the same planktonic realm, there are organisms so alien, so structurally unlike anything else in the ocean, that they challenge our basic categories of what an individual organism even is. Siphonophores. At first glance, a siphonophore looks like a single long, delicate creature, a translucent ribbon of tissue drifting through the midwater, glowing faintly with bioluminescent light. But look closer, examine it under magnification, study its anatomy, and you realize something extraordinary. It is not one organism. It is a colony. A floating assembly of hundreds, sometimes thousands, of individual zooids, each one a specialized polyp performing a specific function within the colony. Some zooids are responsible for propulsion, pulsing rhythmically to move the colony through the water. Others are feeding polyps, capturing prey with stinging tentacles. Still others are reproductive, generating new zooids to grow the colony. And others are purely structural, providing buoyancy or support or sensory input. Each zooid is genetically identical. They are all clones, produced by asexual, budding from a single founding polyp. But they are so specialized, so interdependent, that they cannot survive independently. Remove a feeding polyp from the colony, and it will die within hours. It has no ability to reproduce, no ability to move, no ability to sustain itself. So is a siphonophore a single organism or a colonial assembly? Is it an individual or a society? The answer depends on how you define individuality. And the fact that this question is difficult, that it sits uncomfortably at the boundary between biology and philosophy, reveals something profound about the ocean's capacity to generate solutions that do not fit into the neat conceptual categories we use to organize life on land. The longest siphonophore ever recorded, a species called Apolemia, measured 47 meters from end to end. 47 meters. Longer than a blue whale. Longer than most commercial fishing vessels. A colonial organism drifting through the deep midwater, trailing bioluminescent tentacles through the darkness, capturing fish and crustaceans with a coordination that looks, from the outside, almost like intelligence. But it has no brain. No central nervous system. No cognitive architecture that we would recognize as a mind. And yet it survives. It feeds. It reproduces. It has persisted in essentially this form for hundreds of millions of years. Now the sun sets. The surface waters darken. The last rays of sunlight refract through the waves and fade into blue, then indigo, then black. And in response, triggered by the loss of light, the ocean begins to transform. Bioluminescence. Across thousands of square kilometers of open water, organisms begin to glow. Not with reflected light, but with light they generate themselves, through chemical reactions occurring inside specialized cells called photophores. A dinoflagellate, disturbed by the movement of water, flashes bright blue for a fraction of a second. A defensive response designed to startle predators or attract the predators of predators. A single flash is barely visible. But when millions of dinoflagellates flash simultaneously, disturbed by the passage of a dolphin or the stroke of a swimmer's hand, the water erupts in cascading waves of electric blue light, trailing behind every movement like liquid starlight. Deeper, in the mesopelagic twilight zone, lanternfish produce light from rows of photophores running along their bellies, creating a pattern of downwelling light that matches the faint ambient glow from the surface. This is called counter-illumination. It makes the fish nearly invisible when viewed from below because its silhouette, normally a dark shadow against the lighter surface, is masked by the bioluminescent light it produces. It is active camouflage. And it is so effective that researchers estimate up to 90% of deep-sea organisms use some form of bioluminescence for concealment, communication, or predation. A vampire squid, Vampiroteuthis infernalis, the vampire squid from hell, drifts through the midwater with its arms spread wide, lined with bioluminescent photophores that pulse in coordinated patterns. When threatened, it does not flee. Instead, it inverts its arms over its body like a cloak, displaying hundreds of glowing spots in a dazzling, disorienting pattern designed to confuse predators, while it releases a cloud of bioluminescent mucus, glowing particles that hang in the water like a decoy, allowing the squid to vanish into the darkness. And in the deepest zones, where no sunlight has ever reached, and the only illumination comes from living organisms, entire communities communicate through bioluminescent signals. Flashes that convey species identity, reproductive readiness, territorial warnings. A visual language written in cold light, spoken in an alphabet of wavelengths and flash durations that we are only beginning to decode. This is the ocean at night. Not dark. Not silent. Not empty. Alive with light. Alive with movement. Alive with the countless, uncountable trillions of drifting organisms that form the foundation, the structure, and the connective tissue of every food web in the Pacific. They do not dominate through strength. They do not strategize. They do not plan. They simply exist in numbers so vast that they reshape the chemistry of the entire planet, and they drift. And every apex predator, every intelligent hunter, every organism that we celebrate for its power and its sophistication depends entirely on their silent, invisible labor. Remove the drifters and the ocean dies. Not slowly. Not gradually. Within a single generation, the entire system collapses from the bottom up, and nothing, not the great white, not the orca, not the tiger shark, not the manta ray survives. This is the truth that the Pacific has been teaching for 3 billion years. Power is not always loud. Dominance is not always visible. And the most important organisms in this ocean are not the ones with the sharpest teeth, or the fastest speed, or the most sophisticated minds. They are the ones you cannot see. The ones that drift. The ones that glow in the dark. The ocean does not care about intelligence. It does not reward strategy. It does not respect 400 million years of evolutionary refinement. It does not pause to acknowledge the sophisticated communication systems of an orca pod or the navigational brilliance of a sea turtle that has crossed an entire ocean to return to the beach where it was born. The ocean operates on forces far older and far more powerful than biology. Forces that existed long before the first cell divided in the primordial soup, and that will continue long after the last organism in these waters has vanished. Physics, chemistry, geology. And when these forces move, when the ocean unleashes the enormous indifferent power contained in its currents, its temperature gradients, its tectonic instability, survival is not a matter of adaptation or cleverness. It is a matter of luck. Consider the rogue wave. For centuries, sailors reported encounters with waves that appeared without warning in otherwise calm seas, towering walls of water rising 30, 40, even 50 meters above the ocean surface, dwarfing the ships beneath them and capsizing vessels that had survived decades of storms. For centuries, scientists dismissed these reports as exaggeration, myth, the unreliable testimony of traumatized survivors trying to make sense of chaotic sea conditions. And then, on January 1st, 1995, an oil platform in the North Sea recorded a wave that should not have existed. The Draupner wave. 25.6 meters from trough to crest, nearly twice the height of the surrounding sea state, captured by calibrated instruments that left no room for doubt. It appeared suddenly, struck the platform with enough force to damage the structure, and vanished just as quickly, leaving behind only the data to prove it had been real. Rogue waves are not myths. They are statistical anomalies, the result of multiple wave trains intersecting at precisely the right angle, in precisely the right conditions, to produce a single wave of extraordinary amplitude that concentrates all the energy of the surrounding ocean into one catastrophic peak. And they occur in the Pacific with far greater frequency than anyone realized. Satellite data analyzed over the past 2 decades has identified rogue waves occurring approximately once every 2 days somewhere in the world's oceans. Most of them strike in the open sea, far from shipping lanes, and vanish without ever being witnessed by human eyes. But for any organism in the water, when one arrives, any fish, any whale, any drifting jellyfish caught in the chaotic turbulence as millions of tons of water suddenly accelerate upward and then collapse, there is no escape. The wave does not hunt. It does not target. It simply moves through the ocean like a traveling wall of force, and everything in its path is subject to physics that no amount of intelligence can negotiate. But rogue waves are only the surface expression of a far deeper danger. Beneath the ocean, beneath the slow, predictable circulation of surface currents and the seasonal migrations of plankton and predators, the floor of the Pacific is anything but stable. The Pacific sits atop multiple tectonic plates, enormous slabs of the Earth's crust that are in constant grinding motion relative to one another. Where these plates meet, the geology becomes violent. Subduction zones, places where one plate dives beneath another, generate the deepest trenches on Earth and the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded. The Mariana Trench, the Tonga Trench, the Peru Child Trench, each one a scar in the ocean floor where the crust is being pulled downward into the mantle at a rate of several centimeters per year, slow by human standards but catastrophically violent on geological timescales. And when the pressure that builds along these subduction zones finally exceeds the friction holding the plates together, the release is instantaneous. An earthquake. On March 11, 2011, the Pacific Plate lurched beneath the North American Plate off the coast of Japan. The displacement occurred along a fault line 450 kilometers long. In a single instant, a section of the seafloor, the size of the state of California, shifted upward by several meters, displacing an estimated 500 cubic kilometers of seawater. That water had to go somewhere. What followed was a tsunami. Not a single wave, but a series of waves, each one carrying the energy of the earthquake across thousands of kilometers of open ocean at speeds exceeding 800 kilometers per hour. In the deep ocean, the waves were barely noticeable, less than a meter high, spread across wavelengths of hundreds of kilometers. But as they approached the coast, as the seafloor shallowed and the wave energy compressed vertically, the height increased exponentially. By the time the first wave struck the Japanese coastline, it was over 10 meters tall in some locations, 40 meters in others. A moving wall of water that traveled kilometers inland, obliterating everything in its path: buildings, vehicles, forests, farmland, and carrying the debris back out to sea when it retreated. 18,000 people died. Entire towns were erased. And the Pacific, indifferent and patient, returned to its previous state within hours, as though nothing had happened. For the organisms living in the coastal shallows, the tide pool communities, the kelp forest ecosystems, the coral reefs anchored to volcanic rock, a tsunami is an extinction event. There is no adaptation that prepares you for the moment when the ocean drains away from the shore, exposing the seafloor to open air and then returns as a wall of turbulent, sediment-choked water moving faster than any organism can escape. The reef is scoured clean. The kelp is ripped from its holdfast. The tide pools are emptied and refilled with sand and debris. And the organisms that survive do so not because they were strong or fast or intelligent. They survive because they were somewhere else. But tsunamis, as catastrophic as they are at least visible. They announce themselves. They leave evidence. There are dangers in the Pacific that are far more insidious. Oxygen-depleted dead zones. In certain regions of the Pacific, off the coast of South America, in the northern Indian Ocean, along the continental shelves of North America, vast areas of the ocean are slowly suffocating. These are hypoxic zones, regions where the concentration of dissolved oxygen in the water has dropped so low that most aerobic organisms cannot survive. Fish flee. Crabs and lobsters abandon their burrows and migrate into shallower water where they become easy prey for birds and seals. Anything that cannot leave, anything anchored to the seafloor, Anything too slow or too small to detect the changing chemistry of the water dies. The cause is stratification. When surface waters warm, they become less dense and float above the colder, deeper layers, preventing vertical mixing. Without mixing, the deep water becomes isolated, cut off from the oxygen-rich surface and from the atmospheric exchange that normally replenishes dissolved gases. Organic matter continues to fall from the surface, decomposing and consuming oxygen in the process, and eventually, the deep water becomes anoxic, completely devoid of oxygen. In extreme cases, these zones produce hydrogen sulfide, a toxic gas that smells like rotten eggs and is lethal to most marine life. When upwelling events bring this water to the surface, entire coastal ecosystems can collapse overnight. And these zones are growing, expanding, intensifying. Since 1950, the total volume of oxygen-depleted water in the global ocean has increased by more than 2%. That may not sound significant, 2%, but in an ocean as vast as the Pacific, 2% represents trillions of cubic meters of uninhabitable water. Trillions of cubic meters where the basic chemistry of survival has been fundamentally altered. But perhaps no environmental phenomenon reshapes the Pacific with as much planetary scale force as the event that arrives unpredictably every few years. El Niño. Under normal conditions, strong trade winds blow from east to west across the equatorial Pacific, pushing warm surface water toward Asia and allowing cold, nutrient-rich water to upwell along the coast of South America. This upwelling sustains some of the most productive fisheries on Earth, vast populations of anchovies, sardines, and krill that feed seabirds, seals, sharks, and whales. But every few years, the trade winds weaken. Sometimes they reverse entirely. And when that happens, the warm surface water that has been piling up in the Western Pacific begins to slosh back eastward, spreading across the ocean like a thermal blanket and suppressing the upwelling along the American coast. The cold, nutrient-rich water that normally rises from the deep is trapped beneath a layer of warm, nutrient-poor water. The phytoplankton blooms collapse. The zooplankton populations crash. The fish that depend on them, anchovies, sardines, juvenile squid, disappear almost overnight. And everything that depends on those fish begins to starve. Seabirds abandon their nests by the thousands, unable to find food for their chicks. Sea lion pups wash ashore emaciated, their mothers too weak to produce milk after weeks of fruitless hunting. Sharks and dolphins migrate thousands of kilometers in search of prey, venturing into unfamiliar waters where they are more vulnerable to predation, ship strikes, and entanglement in fishing gear. Coral reefs, already stressed by rising temperatures, bleach as the warm water lingers for months, expelling the symbiotic algae that provide them with energy and leaving behind pale skeletal structures that may never recover. Kelp forests, some of the most biodiverse ecosystems in the temperate Pacific, collapse as the warm water drives away the cold-loving fish, and invertebrates that graze on the algae that would otherwise overgrow and smother the kelp. Entire ecosystems reorganize themselves around the absence of the resources they evolved to exploit. And the organisms that survive are not the strongest or the fastest or the most intelligent. They are the ones flexible enough to adapt to conditions that should not exist. The ones capable of metabolizing different prey, tolerating different temperatures, migrating to entirely new regions of the ocean, and establishing themselves in ecosystems where they do not belong. El Niño is not a disaster. Not in any moral sense. It is simply the ocean redistributing heat and energy across planetary scales, a natural oscillation that has been occurring for thousands of years, long before human beings existed to witness it. But its effects are catastrophic for the organisms that depend on stability. For the seabirds that return to the same nesting cliffs every year, expecting the same abundance of fish. For the kelp forests that have stood in the same location for centuries, anchored to rock and sustained by cold, nutrient-rich upwelling. For the coral reefs that exist within a narrow thermal range and have no capacity to migrate when the water becomes too warm. And as the climate continues to shift, as atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations rise and global temperatures increase, El Niño events are becoming more frequent, more intense, and more unpredictable. The Pacific is changing. Not slowly. Not gradually. Within the lifespan of a single human being, entire oceanographic patterns that have remained stable for millennia are being disrupted. And the organisms that live in these waters, the great whites and the orcas, the manta rays and the jellyfish, the plankton and the deep-sea vent communities, are navigating an environment that is becoming increasingly unstable. They cannot negotiate with physics. They cannot adapt to chemistry that changes faster than evolution can respond. They cannot survive rogue waves, tsunamis, oxygen depletion, and thermal anomalies through intelligence or strategy or cooperation. They can only endure or fail. The Pacific has always been a system of extremes, a place where survival is never guaranteed, where every organism exists at the intersection of biology and geology and atmospheric physics, and where the line between flourishing and extinction can be crossed in a single season. But now, for the first time in the 3-billion-year history of this ocean, there is a new force reshaping its chemistry, its temperature, its currents, and its capacity to sustain life. And that force is not geological. It is not atmospheric. It is not driven by tectonic plates or trade winds or solar cycles. It is us. Chapter 6. Reflections, Survival, Strategy, and Stewardship. The sun is setting over the Pacific. From 30,000 feet, from the small, pressurized cabin of an aircraft crossing from one continent to another, the ocean below appears almost infinite. a vast, unbroken field of blue and silver light that stretches toward every horizon simultaneously, reflecting the sky, absorbing the last rays of sunlight, and dissolving into darkness at the edges of vision. It looks peaceful. It looks timeless. It looks as though it will endure forever, exactly as it is, regardless of what happens on the land, or in the atmosphere, or in the narrow, fragile band of civilization that clings to the surface of this planet. But that appearance is a lie. Because the Pacific Ocean, for all its vastness, for all its power, for all the ancient, intricate systems of life and energy and chemistry that have sustained it across billions of years, is not infinite. It is not invulnerable. And it is not separate from the choices that human beings make every single day in cities and farms and factories thousands of kilometers from the nearest coastline. The ocean is connected to everything, and everything is connected to the ocean. We have spent the last 15 minutes traveling through this ocean's invisible architecture. We began in the cold, absolute darkness of the abyss, watching an orcapod exploit a biological vulnerability that has existed in the great white shark for 400 million years. We rose through the thermoclines and current systems that regulate planetary climate. We drifted with the plankton that produce half the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. We descended into hydrothermal vent ecosystems that operate on chemistry alone, independent of sunlight, sustained by energy from the Earth's molten core. We witnessed intelligence. We witnessed cooperation. We witnessed violence, beauty, adaptation, and survival at scales ranging from the microscopic to the planetary. And through it all, woven into every chapter, every encounter, every extraordinary example of evolutionary refinement, there has been a single, unifying truth. This ocean is a system. Not a collection of isolated species competing for resources in a vacuum. Not a static environment that remains unchanged while organisms adapt to it. But a living, breathing, interconnected system where every organism, from the smallest bacterium to the largest whale, is simultaneously shaped by and actively shaping the environment around it. Remove the phytoplankton and the zooplankton starve. Remove the zooplankton and the fish disappear. Remove the fish and the seabirds, seals, sharks, and whales have nothing left to eat. Remove the apex predators, and the prey populations explode, overgrazing their own food sources and triggering trophic cascades that destabilize entire ecosystems. Every piece is connected. Every relationship is reciprocal. And when one part of the system is disrupted, when a single variable shifts beyond the range that evolution has prepared organisms to tolerate, the consequences propagate outward in ways that are almost impossible to predict. We are disrupting that system. Not intentionally. Not maliciously. But comprehensively, systematically, and at a pace that is accelerating faster than most people realize. the atmospheric concentration of carbon dioxide, the primary greenhouse gas driving changes in global temperature, has increased by nearly 50% since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. The ocean has absorbed approximately 30% of that excess carbon, preventing the atmosphere from warming even faster than it already has. But that absorption comes at a cost. When carbon dioxide dissolves in seawater, it forms carbonic acid, which lowers the pH of the ocean, a process called ocean acidification. The change is small, just a few tenths of a pH unit over the past 2 centuries. But in a system as finely tuned as the Pacific, small changes have enormous consequences. Coral polyps build their skeletons from calcium carbonate, a mineral that becomes harder to produce as the ocean becomes more acidic. Shellfish, clams, oysters, pteropods, the tiny drifting sea snails that form a critical part of the zooplankton community, struggle to form their protective shells. The entire base of the food web, the phytoplankton and zooplankton that sustain everything else, is being forced to operate in chemical conditions that have not existed in this ocean for millions of years. And the organisms that depend on them have no evolutionary precedent for what is happening. The temperature is rising. The global average sea surface temperature has increased by approximately 1 degree Celsius since the late 19th century. 1 degree does not sound significant, not to a species that experiences temperature fluctuations of 20 or 30 degrees between summer and winter, between day and night. But marine organisms are not humans. They are ectothermic. Their body temperature is determined by the surrounding water, and many species exist within thermal ranges of only a few degrees. A single degree of warming can push them beyond the threshold where their cellular machinery functions efficiently. Their metabolism accelerates, demanding more oxygen at precisely the moment when warmer water holds less dissolved oxygen. Their reproductive cycles, timed to seasonal temperature cues that have been stable for millennia, desynchronize. Coral reefs bleach when water temperatures exceed their tolerance for more than a few weeks. Kelp forests die back as warm water species invade and outcompete the cold-adapted organisms that have dominated these ecosystems for thousands of years. Fish migrate poleward, chasing the temperature ranges they evolved to exploit, and leave behind ecosystems that suddenly lack the predators, the prey, or the functional relationships that held them together. The chemistry is changing. The temperature is rising. The currents are shifting. And layered on top of all of this, amplifying every stress, accelerating every disruption, is the direct physical impact of human activity in the ocean itself. Overfishing has removed 90% of the large predatory fish from the world's oceans over the past 50 years. 90%. Species that once numbered in the millions now exist in fragmented, isolated populations struggling to find mates, avoid bycatch, and compete with industrial fleets that can locate and extract fish faster than evolution can replace them. Plastic pollution has created vast, rotating gyres of debris in the open Pacific, floating fields of fragmented polymer that stretches across areas larger than some countries. Microplastics, particles smaller than 5 millimeters, have been found in the digestive systems of organisms at every level of the food web, from zooplankton to whales, and in sediment samples taken from the deepest trenches on Earth. We do not yet fully understand what this means for the long-term health of these ecosystems. But we know it is not neutral. We know it is not harmless. And here is the part that should keep every person watching this awake at night. Most people will finish this video and move on. They will close the tab, return to their lives, and never think about the Pacific Ocean again until the next documentary appears in their recommendations. They will feel a brief flicker of concern, a momentary awareness that something important is happening in a place far away from their immediate experience, and then that concern will fade, displaced by the endless flow of information, distraction, and convenience that defines modern life. This is not a moral failing. It is a predictable consequence of the way human psychology works. Our brains evolved to respond to immediate visible threats, predators, injuries, social conflicts, not to slow-moving, abstract, planetary-scale processes that unfold over decades and centuries. But the Pacific Ocean does not care about the limitations of human psychology. It does not pause its chemistry to accommodate our inability to think in geological timescales. It simply continues absorbing carbon, warming, acidifying, losing oxygen, reorganizing its ecosystems, and the organisms that live in it either adapt or disappear. The question is not whether the ocean will survive. It will. It has survived 5 major mass extinction events. It has survived asteroid impacts, volcanic supereruptions, ice ages, and periods of runaway greenhouse warming that turned the poles into subtropical swamps. The ocean, as a physical system, is far more resilient than any individual species, including ours. The question is whether the ocean we recognize, the one filled with coral reefs and kelp forests, with great white sharks and orcas, with the intricate, beautiful, functional ecosystems that have taken millions of years to evolve, will survive. And that question has an answer. It depends on us. Not on governments, though policy matters. Not on corporations, though industrial practices matter. Not on scientists, though research and data matter enormously. It depends on whether individual human beings, people like you, watching this right now, are willing to carry the knowledge of what is happening in this ocean out into the world and let it change the way you live. It depends on whether you are willing to feel uncomfortable, to ask difficult questions, to make choices that are less convenient, less immediate, less aligned with the cultural defaults that assume the ocean is infinite, that assume the systems sustaining life on this planet will continue regardless of what we do. Most people are not willing to do that. Most people will choose comfort over responsibility. They will choose distraction over engagement. They will acknowledge that something is wrong, express vague concern, and then return to exactly the same behaviors that are driving the crisis in the first place. And that is why the question at the end of this documentary is not about the ocean. It is about you. Do you believe that humanity is capable of evolving beyond short-term self-interest? Do you believe we can become true stewards of the systems that sustain us, not because it is easy, not because it is profitable, but because it is necessary? Or do you believe we are simply another apex predator, more intelligent than the great white, more cooperative than the orca, but ultimately just a subject to the same evolutionary pressures, the same drive to exploit resources until they collapse, the same inability to regulate our own impact until it is too late? There is no correct answer to that question. But your answer, the honest answer, the one you give yourself when no one else is watching, will determine what kind of world your children inherit. The Pacific Ocean covers 1/3 of this planet. It produces half the oxygen you breathe. It regulates the climate that determines whether crops grow or fail, whether coastlines flood or remain stable, whether the intricate web of relationships that makes Earth habitable continues or unravels. It has been here for billions of years. It will be here long after we are gone. But the version of it that we know, the one filled with life and complexity and beauty, is not guaranteed. That version is fragile. That version is under threat. And that version will only survive if enough people decide that it matters. So here is the final question. Not a request for a like or a subscription or a share, though all of those things help this message reach more people. The final question is this. Do you have the courage to be one of the few who refuses to look away? One of the few who carries this knowledge forward and lets it reshape the choices you make, the conversations you have, the future you help create? Or will you close this tab, return to your life, and let the ocean continue to degrade in silence while you convince yourself that someone else will solve the problem? The ocean cannot answer that question. Only you can. Do you believe humanity can evolve into stewards of this planet, or are we destined to be the apex predator that the ocean cannot survive? The choice and the future of the wild Pacific belongs to us. All of us,